Well, good morning, Faith Family. It's Tuesday, December 29th. I pray everything went very well for you in your celebration of Christmas. That as many families as possible able to get together, because that's part of what makes Christmas so unique and dynamic, is coming together, setting aside the hustle and the bustle, and just really getting to enjoy one another. And so this week we're looking at this idea of diverting anger, redirecting anger, excuse me. And when I think about that, I think about the fact that anger, in one sense, has a positive end to it. In another sense, it can bring about detrimental results as well. And so today's text, coming out of the student edition, was to be James 1:13 through 15, where James talks about, hey, when you're tempted, be sure you don't say I'm being tempted by God. And of course, there may be a principle there to be had, but I'm going to look instead to Ephesians chapter 4, because I think there Paul really gives us some great advice in terms of how we can take anger and it can produce that righteous result that God intends for righteous anger. And so in Ephesians 4, verse 26, Paul says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity. So let's start backwards and work into verse 25. So in verse 27, he says, do not give the devil an opportunity. So that right there tells us that if we're not careful in terms of anger, if we don't get a handle on it, if it doesn't have the proper motive, and if we don't deal with it in a timely manner, as verse 26 says, then we're giving Satan an opportunity to take that anger and absolutely put it into a sense of, make it into a sense where it's not going to have that righteous result. And so verse 26 also tells us, don't let the sun go down in your anger. So in that case, we know that redirecting anger means that we deal with it in a timely manner. Whatever has motivated the frustration, whatever has prompted this anger, that we go ahead and deal with it. Whether it's we find out someone has lied to us and we're just furious because we thought we could trust them. Whether it's we find out somebody's betrayed us in terms of they're going behind our back and done something, and again, trust is broken. Whatever the action that prompted the righteous anger, Paul says you still have to deal with it in a timely manner. You can't let it just sit and simmer. It can't be that crock pot approach where you put it on low and all through the day it's cooking. No, because that's going to produce an unrighteous result. Instead, Paul says, be angry and do not sin. So there's going to be an action connected to anger, and it can't be the action of holding on to it, he says. It can't be the action of acting out or lashing out or acting in a way that is not consistent with the character and nature of Christ. So how do we redirect anger so that we're certain that God is honored and glorified in it? Well, first of all, we check our motive. We make certain that what's motivating this anger is indeed a righteousness, that it's something that when we look at Christ in his life, was he ever angry? Yes, he was. When he saw God's name being taken in vain, and when he saw God's house being abused, he was furious. And so anytime that we see God, we see our Lord, his name being taken in vain, his character being violated and things of that nature, that should prompt us to anger, but not a wrathful anger in a sense of lashing out, but instead of righteous anger that seeks to not just bring correction to the action, but to bring, a righteous understanding of who, a right understanding of who Jesus is and what his name represents. And I can go through all the various scenarios, but the point Paul is making is this. If we're going to direct anger properly, redirect it, it means that we're not letting our own emotions drive it, number one. And number two, it means that we're not just going to hold on to it and just deal with it, as we sometimes say, because that's not going to work. And then number three, we make certain that that anger does not provide an avenue for the devil to get into the situation, whether it's to break up a relationship, whether it's to cause us to act or think toward our brother or sister in a way that is not of Christ. And again, you get all sorts of applications you can go through with that. And so today, the challenge for me is pretty obvious in this, in terms of redirecting anger, and that is making certain that we don't allow anger to drive us. Instead, whatever anger we experience, it's got to have a righteous motive to it, and in that sense, a righteous action flows out of it. So this might be very helpful, since yesterday was Monday, and Mondays can sometimes tend to create those possibilities. But I pray that whatever occurred yesterday, that was yesterday, and that forgiveness has come, and that restoration is being sought out, and that if you are angry, that you deal with it in a righteous way. Love you, folks. Looking forward to seeing you when we come together again on our Lord's Day. But until that time, live sin.